The most important topic of this week is that the situation in Crimea has seriously escalated. The Russians seem to sense something. In fact, almost all Russian air defense has been moved from Rublevka and Red Square to the temporarily occupied peninsula. That is, the Russian Federation is leaving military facilities in other regions exposed. At the same time, for the first time, units of the elite Presidential Regiment of the Russian FSB have been spotted at the front in Ukraine. Their Russian command redeployed them to the area near Chasiv Yar in the Donetsk region, where Russia has been fighting unsuccessfully for at least a year. In addition, the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces used strike drones to destroy a Russian Buk-M3 surface-to-air missile system that was covering enemy troops on the ground. A Uragan-1 multiple launch rocket system was also destroyed. Now we will show you this fiery footage.
In these frames, you can see a strike on a bridge in the Kursk region in the settlement of Zvanoye. This happened during the evacuation of a truck that got stuck at the crossing due to logistics. The footage was taken from the phone of a Russian soldier. Meanwhile, as Russian territories and their people suffer, the occupiers are bringing air defense systems into temporarily occupied Crimea.
Among the priority areas where the Russians are strengthening and will always continue to strengthen their air defense systems, Moscow comes first. This, of course, also includes St. Petersburg and Crimea. This allows them to influence, among other things, the theater of military operations on the territory of our country during the Russian-Ukrainian war.
Apparently, Russia has no intention of stopping the war. The Economist reports that the aggressor country is actively ramping up the production of military weapons, especially drones. Ukrainian intelligence officers managed to find out about a new S-8000 Banderol missile, which is being developed by the Russian sanctioned company Kronstadt.
Apparently, Iran has transferred certain technologies to the Russians. It seems that the Russians have managed to supply the missing components which are not produced by the Russian Federation, bypassing the sanctions. This raises the question of what is most important to do in order to reduce the number of Shaheds. I'm talking specifically about production. This is about monitoring the enforcement of those sanctions that have been imposed on various sectors of the Russian Federation's economy. Accordingly, production volumes will actually decrease.
Whatever the Russians do, any reports of success are simply fabricated. For example, on Monday, May 12th, Russia claimed that they had supposedly captured the village of Otliarovka in the Donetsk region. The operational strategic group Kortitsia immediately refuted this information, stating that fighting is still ongoing in Otliarovka.
Russian attempts to advance toward the Dnipropetrovsk region are nothing new. That's the first point. Secondly, I think it's more accurate to say that Russia, and let's remember the strategic goal of the Russian Federation is the complete occupation of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. So in fact, Russia is moving toward the southern, I'm speaking conditionally, southern administrative borders of the Donetsk region. It is precisely the south of the Donetsk region that serves as the direction toward Dnipropetrovsk. Therefore, accordingly, Russia will scale up all its movements, including in the information space.
For the first time, units of Russia's elite FSB Presidential Regiment have reportedly been spotted on the front lines in Ukraine. These units report directly to the Russian dictator and, to put it bluntly, are trained to hold the door open for him not to fight. But that didn't stop Putin from deciding to deploy them near Chasiv Yar in the Donetsk region, where Russia has been fighting unsuccessful battles for at least a year.
It is quite likely that this was actually done for some kind of propaganda purpose. And if the Russians themselves say so, that will be confirmation of it.
Ukraine is also strengthening its army to fight the enemy. The 118th Mechanized Brigade demonstrated the use of the Ukrainian RPG-16 flamethrower for close combat. Its main targets are enemy personnel, equipment, and structures. In this footage, the Special Operations Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces used strike drones to destroy a Russian Buk-M3 surface-to-air missile system that was covering enemy troops on land. A Uragan-1 multiple launch rocket system was also destroyed. In addition, Ukrainian defenders used drones equipped with grenade launchers for the first time. It is claimed that this marks a new level in the use of drones. Now, drones can not only conduct reconnaissance and drop munitions, but also provide full-fledged fire support. In the United Kingdom, the head of a Russian spy network has been sentenced to nearly 11 years in prison. This refers to Bulgarian Orlin Rusev, who acted on the instructions of Austrian Jan Marsalek, the former chief operating officer of Wirecard. The group organized by Rusev and Marsalek was monitoring anti-Kremlin journalists in Europe, for which they received sentences ranging from 5 to nearly 11 years in prison. Marsalek managed to escape to Russia.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Now let's take a detailed look at the operational situation on the Lyman and Siversk sectors of the front. Let's be honest, these are sacred targets for Putin and his gang. Accordingly, the situation here is extremely tense as well. On the Lyman direction, Russian invaders attacked the positions of the defense forces 21 times near the settlements of Novaya Krugliakovka, Lozovaya, Novoyegorovka, Grekovka, Kolodyazi, Yampolovka, Redkodub, and towards Grigorievka. 2 clashes are still ongoing. In the Siversk direction, our defenders repelled 4 attacks by the occupying forces near Verkhnekamenskoye and Belogorovka. Another clash is still ongoing. Another area of continuous fighting on the Lyman direction is the settlement of Yampolovka. It is there that the enemy is trying to establish a bridgehead in order to cross to the western bank of the Chorny Zerebets River. Ukrainian positions here are being stormed by units of the enemy's 25th Combined Arms Army, which shows no regard for the lives of its own soldiers, and the intensity of the attacks does not decrease. How exactly is this happening? How do the defenders of the armed forces of Ukraine stop the advance of Russian war criminals? This is precisely what the following report by TSN correspondent Yulia Kiriyenko is about.
Frankly, countless numbers of eliminated Russian soldiers lie in the fields, forest belts, and trenches along the line of contact. This is the result of the effective work of Ukrainian defenders in the Lyman direction. It would seem that such losses should definitely put an end to any further enemy assault attempts. But Russian commanders keep sending new groups of assault troops to their deaths again and again.
They charge straight ahead. They keep charging straight ahead all the time. If they have the opportunity, they push forward. Basically, it's just forward and forward, that's it.
These are the soldiers of the 66th Mechanized Brigade named after Prince Mstislav the Brave. They are defending the Lyman direction, currently one of the most difficult sectors of the front.
The Russians haven't been ordered to stop, so to speak, the active phase, at least not at this particular moment in time, as far as we know.
Breaking through to Lyman in order to start putting pressure on Sloviansk from the northeast is the occupiers' long-term goal. To achieve this, enemy headquarters are intensifying assaults on 2 neighboring sections of the front in the Lyman sector. The Russians have achieved minimal tactical successes here as they have reached the line of Katerinivka and Novomikhailivka and have engaged in fierce fighting for the small villages of Novoy and Lipov, north of Lyman.
The morning seemed to start quietly, but then things began to escalate. The rain stopped, FPV drones, incoming fire, mortars, and at the beginning, as we were landing there.
Not even the ceasefire declared by the Kremlin itself stopped the Russians in this sector. Ukrainian soldiers say that on the Lyman front, it didn't work for even a minute.
For example, there was supposed to be a truce. They used it to lay down pontoon bridges and amass their forces. It was just a bit quieter, not like it usually is. But there was no truce.
Another area of continuous fighting on the Lyman front is the village of Yampolivka. There, the occupiers are trying to establish a foothold in order to cross to the western bank of the Chorny Zerebets River. Ukrainian positions here are being stormed by units of the enemy's 25th Combined Arms Army, with no decrease in intensity, and they are not sparing their soldiers at all. The Russians have also increased pressure on Lyman itself. The shelling of the city is becoming more and more intense over time, and it is precisely in this direction that all Russian activity from neighboring Kupiansk has shifted. From there, the Russians have even redeployed separate motorized rifle regiments of the 1st Tank Army to the Lyman area. It is clear that all of this is being done to destroy the Ukrainian Defense Forces' logistical routes as quickly as possible and to push Ukrainian defenders as far west as possible ahead of the likely negotiations in Istanbul.